Also following other breaking news, Iran's foreign ministry now says it has sent a response to U.S. criticism of its latest plan to try to end the war, confirming it received corrective points and considerations from Pakistani mediators. President Trump rejected Iran's previous 14-point plan. He called it, and I'm quoting him now, totally unacceptable. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska. He serves on the Armed Services Committee. He's also a retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. How hopeful are you that the war gets resolved and actually improves the situation in the Middle East?
We all want to see the war get resolved with Iran. However, it can't be where they're allowed to have a nuclear weapon or a nuclear capability 5 years from now or 10 years from now. That's what we had under the JCPOA. And so we have to ensure that we negotiate a good deal, a deal that will ensure that Iran never does get a nuclear weapon and threaten Israel, its neighbors, or the United States. And I think we have to be clear, if Iran could have struck New York or Washington, D.C., they would have done it. And so they are a threat. We got to limit those capabilities for the future. And there's no doubt that once we shake hands on any given deal, Russia and China will be right back in. Iran will help them rebuild their military. So we got to ensure we do this right.
President Trump, as you know, has held off on deciding how to proceed with Iran during his recent state visit with the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping. In your view, Congressman, was that a missed opportunity or was it a strategically savvy decision?
Right now, Iran's will is not broken. And that's why I'm going to support an authorization, a limited authorization to use more force. I don't know if the president wants to work that through Congress, but I think he should. But in the end, as long as Iran has this will to resist, to fight back, I think the history shows us over 47 years, they will not negotiate in good faith. They're just going to draw this out. So I believe that a military force will have to be used again in a limited way until they get the message that they need to not meet us halfway. They need to meet us like 9/10 of the way on our side of the field.
Several Republicans, as you know, on a separate issue, Congressman, several Republicans on the Armed Services Committee, including yourself, recently voiced frustration with the Trump administration over the Pentagon's decision to cancel a U.S. troop deployment to Poland, a NATO ally. Why is this change in plans so significant to you, and have you received any sort of explanation from the White House?
This concerns many Americans. It's a bipartisan concern, and it seems like it's a small minority position within the Pentagon that has the president's ear to do this. And the vast majority of Republicans do not support it, let alone across the aisle with the Democrats. We have received no assurances from the White House or the Pentagon on what is going on here. They're being very secretive what this all means, and it's wrong. It's wrong to Congress. It's also wrong to our ally Poland, who is a model ally. They spend roughly 4.8% of their GDP on defense, significantly more than we do. And they've been leading the way and doing the things that we've been asking. And this is what concerns, in a bipartisan way, members of the committee. Earlier, what was last year, the Pentagon decided to withdraw an armor brigade from Romania. There's 3 brigades that were forward deployed. So that took us down to 2. Now they're not going to replace the brigade in Poland. So that takes us down to 1. So they've removed 2 out of 3, or in the process of removing 2 out of 3 of these armor brigades. It sends a terrible message to Russia. They're giving 0 concessions while we're unilaterally withdrawing forces from Eastern Europe. This causes grave concern to Poland, who count on this brigade as a deterrence. Also causes great concern to Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, who are on the front lines and very vulnerable. If we're going to pull armor brigades out of Eastern Europe, there should be concessions from Russia. To do this unilaterally, it looks weak. And the way it was done with no warning to Poland, it's also embarrassing. I know the chairman of the committee is angered about this. We'll probably put more restrictions in the NDAA to prevent these kinds of things happening in the future. We shouldn't have to do this, but they're forcing our hand.
What's the argument those that the Pentagon and the administration are making to limit the U.S. military involvement in Poland?
Well, they're claiming they've done an analysis that they're not needed, but it's the vast majority in the Armed Services Committee disagree. Russia has invaded Ukraine, right? It's proven itself to be a threat. They've been threatening Estonia in recent weeks, putting more forces on the border. And he's got to look at what will happen if, like, say, Ukraine falls. Moldova will definitely be the next country to fall, perhaps Georgia. General Petraeus recently said the Baltics will probably be attacked because Russians don't believe in America's resolve here. So we got a real issue in our hand, and part of providing confidence to our allies is to have these 3-4 deployed armor brigades, because if Russia does invade, they know they're attacking Americans, and this creates deterrence. By withdrawing them, it makes Eastern Europe and NATO and actually United States in the long run more vulnerable. If they're not making a case, well, that's the problem.
Poland is right next to Ukraine, too. It's a significant, strategically important country, as we all know. On the domestic front, Congressman, Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy became the first Republican senator this weekend to lose his primary in nearly a decade. I want to play some of his concession speech. Listen to this.
It is the welfare of my people and my state and my country and our Constitution to which I am loyal. And if someone doesn't understand that and attempts to control others through using the levers of power, they're about serving themselves. They're not about serving us. And that person is not qualified to be a leader.
Senator Cassidy voted to convict President Trump in his second impeachment trial and faced a Trump-endorsed challenger in his primary race. What do you take away from his loss?
Well, the president has a lot of leverage in the primaries. There's no doubt. Now, he did come after me in 2022. I was able to prevail. But for the most part, the president has had tremendous success in the primaries. The problem is it doesn't translate one for one anyway in the general election. Right now, I saw polling today where he's at 37%, and the generic polling showing the Democrats are up about 11 points. That is a recipe for a very hard November for my party. And what I think most voters want is they like a lot of the president's policies, but they don't want a rubber stamp. They want they want some checks and balances, as the Constitution put us there for that purpose. And right now, they're not really seeing that checks and balance. They're seeing sort of a yes man mentality, and I think that will hurt us. You know, Senator Cassidy, I have a lot of respect for. I hated to see him lose. I also know Julia Letlow. I think she's a great congressman from Louisiana. But I do think the president wants blind loyalty in Congress from Republicans. He's not the only president to have demanded this in the past, but I don't think it works for him in the long run. Some independent thinking and feedback would make him stronger. And I believe if Congress would step in more on tariffs and on Ukraine, our favorables would be much higher.
Very quickly, before I let you go, Congressman, I want to ask you about this reported $1.8 billion fund, taxpayer money, that the Trump administration is setting up to try to compensate those who believe they were subject to unfair Department of Justice investigations under previous administrations. Do you have any concerns about who could receive money from this fund?
Well, I think the whole thing stinks. It looks terrible. I wouldn't advise it. There's got to be some kind of legal arbitrator that if this does occur, so it doesn't look like it's the administration negotiating with the administration on how much money that's going to be paid out. That would look terrible. But I think it doesn't look good at all, Wolf, and I wouldn't advise it.
All right, good point. Congressman Don Bacon, thanks as usual for joining us.